Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Toughnut, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Cross.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Now, let's get on to that T-Bar 1 tale of the tape. Originally from St. Albert, Alberta, he spent time in Junior A playing for the Camrose Kodiaks, who lost in the 2005 Royal Bank Cup to the Weyburn Red Wings. He spent 2 years playing for the Chilliwack Bruins of the WHL, 5 years between the Springfield Falcons and the Syracuse Crunch of the AHL. He then ended up playing games for the Colorado Avalanche, the New York Rangers, the Boston Bruins, and now currently for the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I'm talking about Nick Holden. So buckle up. Here we go. Say this is your name and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
This is my name and welcome to the Sean Newman. This is Nick Holden and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today I'm joined by Vegas Golden Knights defenseman Nick Holden. So first off, thanks for hopping on, big fella.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Now, I read a bit about your story. I was talking with Dean. Dean's the one who hooked me up. I'm looking at your story and I go like, well, I'll let you explain a bit about it, but I'm like, man, that's unusual. Your road to where you are right now isn't exactly get drafted in the second round, second year in, start playing for whatever club, stay there for 5 years and carry on. You're originally from St. Albert, and by the sounds of what I read, you didn't really have high dreams or big dreams of making the NHL. You want to just talk us through maybe early on?
Sure. I mean, a kid growing up in Canada, in St. Albert, I think when I was really young, I had all the dreams of playing in the NHL. I wanted to play for the Oilers. The Detroit Red Wings were my favorite team. And so I'd say early on, I always wanted to play in the NHL. When you're playing street hockey or at the outdoor rink, you're wanting to play for an NHL team. And then as I got a little bit, probably into my early teens, hockey just wasn't a priority for me as much, and I didn't really want to play, and my mom and dad wanted me to just continue to play. Our family, my older brother played, my younger sister played, my dad had played in the AJ. So
can I ask why you didn't want to play anymore?
I think at that time I had been playing kind of the top levels in St. Albert, and so I had played
double A, tier whatever.
I played Adam double A, and it was really serious. And there was a lot of kind of, as a kid, for me, it seemed like a lot of fighting, like arguing and stuff like that. And my personality, I didn't really like that, and so I shied away from it a little bit. But mom and dad just wanted me to continue to play. They thought it was important. Hockey, now that I'm older and stuck with it, is so valuable, teaching you life lessons and stuff like that. And I think they knew that at the time, and so they wanted me to continue. And so they didn't push me to play at a high level. They just said, well, just continue to play. And so I did, and I played through my second year Pee Wee. I didn't even try out for kind of rep hockey or anything. I just played. And then Bantam, same thing. I didn't even try out, just played house league interlock hockey. And midget, I was the year that they switched all the midget, and so I only had 1 year Bantam, then went to midget, and I tried out for the rep. I started enjoying hockey again and really started getting passionate about it. And so played midget single A my first year, midget double A my second year, midget triple A my third year midget. I was fortunate that Camrose my last
You
year
know,
midget, I
how
almost,
you say that like, yeah, I just kind of like, how cool that is. Like, there are so many parents, kids, whatever. I'm this little short, stocky 5'6",
yeah,
5'7" guy, and that's cool. It's just it's nice to. I think it's always good for parents to hear that. You know, just like you don't have to. What you're saying is, I mean, not that everyone can have a story like that.
yeah,
But, at the same time, let your kid find their path, right? Like,
for
obviously
sure.
kept you in hockey,
Whether
right?
yeah, exactly. Even if it's not hockey, if it's something else, your kids are gonna sort out what they're good at and just support them. And my parents were great for that. And I was gifted and blessed with gift to play hockey, and so I was able to kind of take some time. I don't want to say off because I still played, but time to really kind of
yeah.
enjoy hockey and not worry about playing at a super high level where it's very competitive and stressful and stuff like that. And so once I started getting back into it, I loved it, and I kept my thing was always just, let's see how far I can take it. Okay, I made midget single A. Next year, I made midget double A. My third year, I went to Camrose camp and I almost made the Kodiaks out of camp. Boris sent me back to midget triple A. Played my year there, got to play a ton. It was an awesome year. When we were done, they were still going. They had a really good team that year. Ended up going to the RBC in Weyburn.
I watched that game on television. I'm a year
Yeah.
older. I'm a year older than you, so I watched that
Yeah.
goal go in where, you were there. You were there.
Yeah. It was for me. I mean, it was obviously kind of a whirlwind situation for me because I got called up a little bit at the end of their regular season. Didn't play throughout the playoffs, but I was around the team. Practiced every once in a while, was around for some of the games, and then I hadn't skated for like a month, and I get this call from Boris. My high school graduation's happening the following weekend, the following Friday. I get a call from Boris, and he goes, "Hey, have you been skating?" And I just said, "Oh yeah, I've been skating. Haven't been on the ice for a month." And he goes, "Well, can you fly down to Weyburn? A couple of our D-men are hurt. Can you play?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And so I was like, I told him, I'm like, "Hey, I got my graduation on Friday, so I'm gonna have to fly back." And he's like, "That's okay, because if we make the whatever semis, we play Thursday, then Saturday's the semis." I'm like, "Okay, sweet." So I go down there. I get to play a couple of the round robin games, and then some of the older guys that were hurt played in the semis and the finals, just because it was kind of their last hurrah. But yeah, just standing in the corner when that play happened. I mean, if I was on that team full time, I wasn't there for everything throughout the year, and my heart sank when that play happened because it was nobody's fault. It was like, I think it was Travis Friedley was kind of maybe yelling for him to play it, and Thompson was going to cover it, and then he heard that and started to and they just poked it, and it was just like, that was the reaction. Everyone in the corner, we were all just like,
that was the reaction on the television. That's exactly how I looked. I was like what? Like, that's such a heartbreaking way to lose a Royal Bay. For the listeners who don't know what we're talking about, it was a 2-2 game with what, like a couple minutes left on the clock?
I don't even think. I think there was like a minute. I think there was a minute 20. I think it was a minute 20 left on the clock.
And it was like a harmless.
It was a harmless
tell
dump in. Yeah, it was a harmless dump in, and yeah, Thompson stopped it easily with his paddle, and he just had it, and then he started putting his glove over top of it, and then I think it was Freeze. I can't remember, but I think it was and he went to start to play it, and then he was like, "Okay, the guy's too close," and went to try and cover it, and the guy just swung his stick and it poked through his legs. And we were literally in the corner that happened, and we were just like, and it was just, that was it. And then we had an 11-hour bus ride home the next morning, and it was like crickets on the bus. You're playing movies, but the guys are just obviously in a bad spot. But yeah, it was wild. But
as good as I mean, right now in the AJHL, Brooks has been an absolute powerhouse. Spruce Grove, Sherwood Park Crusaders have been really good. But back in that day, the Camrose Kodiaks were 1-2 with, who was it? Fort Mac, maybe?
Well, yeah, it was so it was like right before I came into the AJ, it was like Grand Prairie had just hosted the RBC, so they were really good. My brother actually played on that team, and then Fort Mac had been good for years. And then Camrose in the South, I don't think there was anyone that ever came close to touching them, really, at that time. And then I played after that. I think they went to the RBC every second year for a little bit. And then, Brooks came in and just, I think they did a great job with scouting and facility and bringing guys in from outside of Alberta. I think that was the biggest thing with the Camrose, was it was mostly Alberta guys. And so Boris somehow always found guys out of Calgary that were just studs and goal scorers. And obviously when you have a good team, guys want to play there. And at that time, guys were getting drafted every year, and guys were getting scholarships and stuff like that. So it was a great team to be a part of.
Well, you end up going to the Chilliwack Bruins, which I like watching where your career goes. I kind of chuckled to myself as I'm going through, because I'm like, oh, Chilliwack Bruins aren't there anymore, right? Like,
oh, I'm still chuckling that I'm where I'm at. Yeah, yeah. It was wild, because when the general manager of that Chilliwack team, he's from St. Albert, and so I think he was scouting Edmonton area pretty hard, because that's kind of where he was from. And so he was kind of all over me that year I was playing in Camrose, and saying, hey, would you sign and come play in Chilliwack next year? I would have been a 19-year-old rookie going to the Dub. And growing up, obviously the WHL is like the league. The NHL is obviously awesome, but it seems so unattainable. The WHL is like, if you make the Dub, your hockey career is awesome. And so when he's talking to me, I'm like, I can't play in the WHL. What is this guy talking about? And so I kind of kept telling him, you know what, I want to get a scholarship. I want to finish my year in Camrose and probably play next year in Camrose and hopefully get a scholarship somewhere. He's like, he respected that, but he never let it go. He would just kind of come back every couple months and say, hey, have you changed your mind at all? Well, November, I get traded from Camrose to Sherwood Park. I literally go from, at the time, the best organization to, unfortunately, Sherwood Park at that time was they were just the bottom. And so it was like, I'm back living at home, and it was just a little bit of a mind change. At the end of the year, I had a couple schools kind of talking to me, but not really. And so I just said to my mom and my mom and dad, I just said, you know what? I'd started my plumbing apprenticeship actually while I was playing in Sherwood Park, and I really enjoyed it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go, and I'm going to just see how far I can take hockey. If hockey doesn't work out, I really enjoyed plumbing, I'll continue to do that. And so mom and dad, again, super supportive. They're like, absolutely. And so I went down to Chilliwack that following year, and I didn't sign. I said, I'm not signing anything until I get there. I can see I can actually play at this level. So I went down there, didn't sign anything throughout all the training camp, everything, got to the very end. And I said, okay, I guess let's do this. And so I signed there, and I love my time, my 2 years in Chilliwack there. It was a great time.
When I have the younger guys on, or heck, when I have guys, doesn't matter really about playing in the Dub, everybody always talks about the bus trips. the long bus trips. What was the one bus trip you well, maybe you loved being on the bus, I don't know, or maybe you hated being on the bus, but in the dub, you guys were on the bus an awful lot. Is there any memorable ones that stick out where you're like, frick, X happened, or maybe you guys had a really good go and you made a tour and won a bunch of hockey games? I'm not sure.
We were an expansion team, so every year we squeaked into the playoffs. So I don't ever remember us having a really good run of anything. We would win games, but it wasn't like we were putting. We had, I think, at one of my years, maybe my second year, we had an 11-game losing streak. So I remember that. But so our division was Vancouver, and at that time they were the absolute powerhouse. So we would play them because we played them in the playoffs both years, and we played them in exhibition, and then you played them like 12 times in regular season. So they would just beat us up. So
who is the guy on the Giants back then?
The guy. There was more than one. Lucic was their like their decor. Their decor. I think every one of their decor played in the NHL. It was like Cody Franson, Jonathan Blum, Brendan Mickelson. It was just like the list went. Brett Ragnar. It was like the list went on and on. Their forwards were like Michael Repic, Lucic, Mahachek. It was like ridiculous. And
what was trying to slow Lucic down like back then?
You wouldn't. You just get out of the way. It's the same as now. I mean, you let them sleep or try to, and then obviously one of the like third, fourth line guys would be like, nah, and go try and run them, and then he'd wake up and just start burying people, scoring goals, and you're like, oh, thanks, man. I really want to go back on these pucks right now. But so it was like Vancouver, Kamloops, Kelowna, but then Prince George was in our division. It was like a 10-hour drive from Chilliwack. And so we'd have to go up there, and you'd go up there for 2 games, no fans in the building, because at the time PG wasn't very good. And it was just like, what are we doing up here right now? Like, this is useless. They would win one, we would win one, and then we'd go home. And it would be like, you're going, our bus driver was our radio guy. And so he would drive us up there, call the games, and then he would drive home. And so he's got to be snoozing, but he's flying around these turns in the mountains, snow everywhere. And so you don't sleep a wink. You're like lying there like, please don't die, please don't die, please don't die. So I think that would probably be the most memorable, was like coming down on these hairpin turns and he's just cruising. But
you know, I played my junior A out in Dryden, Ontario, and we used to play marathon, and it was on like the north side of Lake Superior. And when you go around the top side of Superior, it is like, it's more dangerous than the mountains, I swear. And our bus driver's nickname was Automan. So shout out to Automan if he ever listens. And I remember we were in the middle of a snowstorm going up and down these hills, and they were like, you know, like 90-degree corners, and you go back and forth and back and forth. And I remember thinking that too. I'm like, I don't know. I'm tired of worrying about it, because I can't tell if we're going to make it down this hill or not. Right. But old Automan, shout out to him, because he always found a way to get us home safely. And I mean, all the bus drivers do, man. It's funny that
I don't know how they do it.
I don't know. Lots of coffee and cigarettes.
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah. I just, for me, when I tell people, I love playing pro. Pro's been so much fun. But if you talk to most guys, their best memories are, unless they've won a Stanley Cup or whatever in professional hockey, I think their best memories are junior hockey. And you have no other worries. Usually you're a little bit older, you're 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever you are. And so you're not really worried about school. You're not worried about working. All you want to do is just hang out with the boys and play hockey. And it's just a blast. And so I still keep in contact with a bunch of guys from Chilliwack and guys from Camrose, and it's such a fun time. And so I have great memories from playing there.
I can share that sentiment. There's a special thing about those junior years, because everybody's relatively the same age, not married, no kids, no cares, right? I mean, you got
No worries. There's no worries.
There's no worries. You got 4 kids in the middle of a pandemic. How are things going with 4 kids? How old are your kids, Nick?
My oldest is 9. Carter is my second oldest. He'll be 7 in the beginning of January. Then my daughter just turned 6, and then my youngest is 2. So
that's a busy house.
oh no, 5. Sorry, my daughter just turned 5. Yeah, I can't even remember it.
Yeah, you can't keep track of them. Can't keep track of them.
Half the time I don't even know their names. And you get over here. So no, I mean, it's such a blast. It's obviously a lot different than when I was in junior, but it's just about having fun with wherever you are, whatever situation you're in. And I was able to marry somebody that has as much fun as I do in every situation, because we've been in and around everywhere. So we've had a lot of fun.
Well, you've been across the continent is what you've been. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
When you're playing in Chilliwack, how does Syracuse happen? How does Columbus come a knocking? Like, is that just something that, because you talked a lot about wanting to go to school. Did something just happen and all of a sudden you had some NHL offers come in? Like, I read one story that said you went to the Oilers training camp. Is that true?
Yeah. So coming out from Camrose, when I was there, it was really okay, I think I could get a scholarship to a good school, and then got traded to Sherwood Park, started my apprenticeship as a plumber. It was like, okay, you know what? Let's take hockey as far as we can. Went down to Chilliwack my first year there when I was a 19-year-old rookie. I got to play a ton. Jim Hiller, Dan Price were my coaches there. And Jim Hiller's now in with the Islanders, was with Babcock in Toronto. I think he was in Detroit with Babcock, and he just played me so much and gave me every opportunity to play every situation, and really let me kind of develop as a player. And so without the opportunity those guys gave me, I don't think I would have been seen, because obviously usually the guys on good teams are the ones that can get some extra looks and stuff like that. And so maybe it was because we were playing the Giants all the time that we had extra scouts in the building, and they noticed that I wasn't getting beat every time. So
just letting Lucic go in the corner first.
Yeah, exactly. You go. And so yeah, after my 19 year, I got to go to Edmonton's rookie camp, which was awesome. Great experience. If
you don't mind me asking, who would have been there at that rookie camp? I'm just, Oiler country here. You got my fan brain going.
It was, I want to say it was Gagne's draft year. I think it was the year he went did he go in the first round?
Yeah, he went in the first round. Absolutely, he did.
I think so. Okay, so I think it was his year, because he didn't play in rookie camp, but he came and like dropped the puck or something like that. Because the rookies always play U of A.
Right.
And I got to play in that game, and I think he dropped the puck for that game. I don't know why he didn't do rookie camp, but he dropped the puck for the game.
He was taken.
But
just for your brain, that's year Patrick Kane was taken first overall, and Sam Gagner was number 5.
Okay. Great hockey brain right there. Or else you have the internet going.
No, I'm totally. Hey man, that's why I'm like 2007. Geez, that doesn't sound that long ago, but that's 13 years ago. So it's actually quite a while ago. So yeah. That's Sam Gagner.
Yeah, I keep every time I do something where I'm like, oh yeah, I was in Chilliwack, and people are like, Chilliwack? When were they in the? I was like, whoa, I guess I'm starting to date myself a little bit here. Still feel like I'm 18. So yeah, I was at their camp, and it was the best thing. Obviously, being from around Edmonton, it was like the camp was up in Yellowknife. I don't know why they had it up there that year, but got to go up there, get my first taste of kind of playing against guys that NHL organizations were really recognizing to be kind of prospects or good players. And so went up there, and I felt like I had a really good camp. And then my next year going into into Chilliwack as a 20-year-old, I felt so good. And my coach, after the year, he kind of just told me, he said, you know what, Nick, or maybe even a couple of years after, he was just like, you know what, that year you were almost like a man amongst boys in that year. And then I'm like thinking to myself after, I'm like, well, I was a 20-year-old. I was a man amongst, like, I should have been, because everyone else is 17, 18 years old. But I'd really never started like training and physically developing until I kind of went to Chilliwack. So I started training with a trainer and stuff like that. And so felt great my 20-year-old year. Again, our power play was really good. I had some great players on that team, Mark Santarelli, Oscar Moeller, who just, our power play was lights out. And so I ended up scoring, I think, 22 goals that year. And so I had, at the end of the year, it was like I had I had a few more offers, but I had 3 that were all the exact same offers. And so as a free agent, I could kind of choose where I wanted to sign. And it was Toronto. They had no GM at the time. And I was like, not sure. Talking to my agent, I'm like, I'm not sure it's great to sign with a team that doesn't have a GM, because whoever's coming in might not like you. And then the other team was the New York Rangers. And I said, I think that's it. I think we're going to go with the Rangers. They had said, okay, you're going to go to the minors, play a few years, develop. But then once you're developed, we bring our guys up, which they had a track record of doing. They were bringing guys up from the minors after a few years of getting them groomed. So I was like, yep, that's my decision. Told my coaches in Chilliwack, I said, you know what, guys, I'm signing with the Rangers. Went home that night. Not sure what changed in my mind, but I was like, okay, maybe I can get in the NHL faster if I go to Columbus. and New York City scared the crap out of me. And so I said, okay, I'm going to Columbus. And so the next day I went back in. I'm like, gotcha. I'm going to Columbus. And my coach was like, what happened? Whatever. And so we ended up signing with Columbus. And right after the season, we lost out to Vancouver within a couple days. I think I was on my way to Syracuse because they were still playing. And when I get there, I think they were on like a 20-game winning streak. And they're like, the coach is like, hey, you're just going to practice for a little bit just to get kind of up to speed, and then we'll get you into a game. And they keep winning. And I'm like, not sure I want to get into a game, because if we lose and I'm in this game, like, dang it. And so it was the going from junior hockey to professional hockey in Syracuse, New York. The first guy I met, I walk in, the rink there, it's called the War Memorial. It's this super old rink, and so they're up, the dressing room is upstairs where you actually get dressed to go on the ice, but their locker room, weight room is down under in like the basement. And so I walk into the locker room with my bag over my shoulder. The first guy I see is Zenon Konopka. and Konopka, awesome guy, but his face is like, his nose, he's been through war, and so and fought the toughest people ever. And so I walk in straight from Chilliwack, got my bag, and I walk in and I see him, and I'm like, holy like, what am I getting myself into here? And he's like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, oh, good. Try to mock him up a little bit. I'm doing good. How are you doing? And so we ended up, I played one game that year. They lost in the second round to Toronto, the Marlies. And then the following year, go into camp. Columbus they're pretty high on me. And so I had spent the summer in Columbus training, and I think there was like 6 or 7 guys, Chris Russell, Derek Dorsett, Tom Sestito, Jared Bowl, myself. I lived in a house with Jacob Voracek and Derek Brassard.
How was that?
It was wild, because I'm like right in the middle, where, so me and Brassard are the same age, but I'd started dating my wife at the time, and Broussard was single. Borchek was 18, had a girlfriend in the Czech Republic, and so he would be on Skype every night, talking, eating his M&Ms all the time. I would be just like, whoa, what's going on here? Broussard had played a year professional already, and so he kind of knew what was going on. It was hilarious because Broussard was the only guy with a car, and so me and Jake would have to get up in the morning and go with him. But Brass, for some reason, he just loved to crank his music, and he would have like pop music going, but just cranked, windows down, cranked. And we're cruising in Columbus, which was dead in the summer. Like Ohio State no one's really there. Cranked his music, windows down, like we're impressing people, and I'm like, I'm kind of cold. Can we roll the windows up here? Like, what's going on? But that summer was a blast, living with those guys.
You end up spending, is it 6 seasons in the A?
I had 5
5
years. Yeah.
And did you get to play 3 of those with Nasty John Morasti?
I only got 2. I think it was only 2.
The reason
I don't think he came to Springfield. I think he was only in Syracuse.
The reason I ask is I'm pointing there, but it's not there. It's in front of my head. Hillmond is my hometown, Wade Redden's hometown, and we have a senior there. So when I first got back, I was playing senior for Hillmond, and Meadow Lake came in our league, and they had. Well, John Morasti's played the last 2 years against us, I think it is. So I had him on the podcast, and he was talking about the days in Syracuse and how wild it was. And
so let me speak to that real quick. So that year that I came up, when they were on their like 20 games, so it was Konopka, Dorsett, Sestito, and Morasti were like their fighters, whatever, tough guys. Konopka told these guys, if anybody crosses the red line, you go after them in warm up. And so I think that year they had like 3 or 4 warm up, not fights or brawls, but like a little bit of a skirmish because somebody would just cross over the red line. And it was just like the most intimidating. The War Memorial is a tight rink. And so it's just super intimidating. You have all these guys. Morasti. But sorry, continue with.
I wanted to know. He just talked about his time in Syracuse. Obviously, he enjoyed what you're talking about. He enjoyed that part of the game. He still enjoys that part of the game. Although, I mean, now in senior, he's definitely. I don't think he got in a fight all last year. I could be wrong, but I just heard the stories of all the names you just rattled off, and how mean these guys were, or how like intimidating, I guess I should say, not mean. And you're the guy sitting there as a young kid getting to be a part of this. I assume your eyes must have been wide.
Yeah, it was wild. It was so when I got into the AHL, our division was Binghamton, Rochester, Toronto, Hamilton, and Winnipeg, and Grand Rapids. Binghamton. So we had all those guys. But then the next year, Dorsett made Columbus. Konopka was, I think, in Columbus. Sestito was still there. Morasti was still there. And then they would always, Syracuse, their owner, always wanted to have a little bit of meat in the lineup. And so he would always sign guys just to meet it up a little bit. Well, Binghamton had Yablonski. Like their super heavy was Yablonski. Rochester had McIntyre. Who else? Lassard was in Portland. Like every team in our area just had a super heavy, and these guys would fight each other, and you're just like, oh, and I just remember when Morasti and Yablonski used to fight each other because we'd play bingo I think 8 times a year, and they would fight each other, and it would literally just like they would go to center ice, and they'd just be like, as fast as they can, they're hitting each other just straight in the face. Boom, 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 boom. And then they would yell at each other. They'd be like, okay, switch. And they would switch hands. The other one, they'd go left. They would just be hitting each other. And then it would be like they would stop because neither of them would go down. And neither of them bled. And so they would just stop. The linesman would break them up. I just remember the one game we were in Binghamton, and there was always a huge rivalry. We'd always have tons of fights, all this stuff. It's at the end of a period, and it turned into a melee because our goalie was it was after the second. Our goalie had to cross their bench because their bench had to cross the ice to get into the corner to get off the ice. Well, as they're crossing, our goalie's crossing, whatever, bumps, and then there's like a huge melee going on. Everybody's on the ice, and then all of a sudden, you know how like goalie fights usually stop a brawl? Like everyone just starts watching that.
Yeah.
Well, these two do what they do. They go to center ice, and then both teams just line up on the blue line. It was like an award ceremony at the end of a game. Everybody's lined up on the blue line, and these two are just squared up at center ice, getting ready to go. And then they just grab on, boom, 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 switch, boom, boom, boom. And we're all just like, what is going, like, how does that not hurt your face? Like, what is going on here? But yeah, he's a great guy. Jablon, they love doing it. And so it was just funny times, funny memories.
In your 5 years of being in the A, did you ever get frustrated? Maybe there's a different word for it, but yeah, that seems like, maybe I'm wrong. That seems like a long time to percolate, but maybe that was exactly what you needed. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for me, my belief is that you are where you're meant to be. For me, God has a plan for me, and that's what it was. And so it was like, at the time, I didn't see that. I was sitting in Syracuse, my first 2 years pro, and I was loving playing and being in every situation. Columbus at that time was still not very good, and so what I thought when I signed with them was that, okay, if I played well, I would be able to get an opportunity and maybe make the team. But what I didn't understand is that when the team wasn't very good, they kept signing guys, NHL guys, to try and fill those spots instead of giving guys chances because they wanted to be better. And so it always kind of like pushed you down a couple pegs. And so it was like, I don't know if my first couple of years I got frustrated. I think I got more frustrated with the coaches down in the A at some points because they kept trying to make me kind of play meaner. Like, I'm a pretty big guy and I don't have a real edge to my game. And so they would always try and be like, you got to be tougher in front of the net. If a guy comes in, you got to cross check him. You got to slash him and all this stuff. And so there were times after practices, they would just be like yelling at me about something. And I'm just like, what do you want? And I just like blow my top and freak out for no reason. And it's just immaturity at that time. But then as we transitioned, it was like I was so close my first couple of years, I felt, to getting into the NHL. And then when I went to Syracuse, as a player, I was getting way better. I was still playing top minutes, power play, penalty kill, all this stuff. I wasn't getting really called up much. But I was still playing big minutes, developing as a player. I think it was my first year, maybe it was my second year in Springfield. I had an unbelievable camp in Columbus, got sent down because they had too many NHL defensemen, was having a great year in the minors, ended up high ankle sprain. I went to hit a guy, he like chop blocked me, high ankle sprain, missed a month. I rushed back. I tried to wear like this plastic brace inside my skate. First game back, dislocate my shoulder, need surgery, my year's done. And I'm just like, ah. And then the next year And the next year, it was like they gave me little opportunities, and I didn't play as well as I probably should have to be able to stick. And so, as much as they didn't give me opportunities, I didn't do anything with the small opportunity they did give me. And so, again, it just gave me opportunity to develop, play in every situation. Play in Springfield for 3 years, which looking back now, was wild. My first child was like, my oldest guy was born there. Me and my wife lived there for 3 years. And again, I think the minors is probably, the AHL might be the hardest league, I think, to play in, because you have guys that in the NHL, everybody wants to be on the NHL team. Everybody wants to give everything they got to help that team win. But in the minors, you have the top guys that don't really want to be there. They want to be in the NHL. You have the bottom guys that are usually getting called up and down from the coast. They're on PTOs. So they're trying to make themselves look good so that they can get a contract in the AHL. And then you have kind of the core group, which is trying to win for that team. And so I find it away from the rink way better, because nobody really has much money. You're just relying on each other, very tight knit that way. But on the ice, the hockey side of it, it's all, I don't want to say really selfish, but you're looking out, trying to get yourself advanced. You're trying to get yourself a contract. You're trying to get yourself to the NHL. And so sometimes that would play out in the AHL, where you're like, oh man, like, what's this guy doing? Or you get guys that are like kind of negative sometimes, like, oh, why are they calling that guy up? Like, I'm having a better year than he is. And so I was fortunate that, I guess, over my year, every year that I stayed in the AHL, I started to realize this. And so my mindset changed from, oh, why's that guy getting an opportunity and I'm not, to, okay, I'm going to just do what I can. I'm going to control what I can control. And if I get an opportunity, I'm going to try and do my best with it. And if I don't, I got to keep playing well so that I can get another contract, maybe somewhere else, or with Columbus again. So the AHL definitely, I would say, the hardest league to play in.
And that's, I think you used the word maturity. Just over time, you started to realize, and some guys figure that out and other guys don't. And it's probably why you're sitting where you're sitting now, is that you figured it out and continued to improve. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like I just said, was just like my mindset when I flipped it to, don't worry about what you can't control. I can't control how much ice time my coach is going to give me. I can't control how many opportunities I'm going to get from the GM or from this organization. I can control how hard I'm working and my play. And if that's not good enough for them, then unfortunately it's not good enough for them. But I'm going to give you everything I got. And so I think that has helped me, because I'll give you everything I got, whether it's in practice for 20 minutes or during the game. I'm going as fast as I can, and I'm not always the fastest, but I'm going as fast as I can. And my shot isn't very good, but I'm still shooting as hard as I can. And you know what? I'm just giving you everything I got. So I'm glad that I've been able to continue to fool people here for a few years.
Fool people. I like that. Yeah, I bet. Let's talk about the Colorado Avalanche. That team that you signed with in 2013. You're walking onto a roster. I was looking at it today. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how good they were. Right? I mean, young, but like talent oozing out of the ears. I just wrote down a couple of the names: Duchesne, Landeskog, O'Reilly, McKinnon, Stastny, Tyson Berry, just to name a quick few. Nick Holden. Nick Holden, no big deal. And Varlamov was our goalie. In net, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Like, what was the sales pitch, or what, they just wanted you to come in, or how do you land on that team? How do you land in Colorado?
So what happened was I'd spent 5 years with Columbus. At the end of my year-end meeting, it was like I knew I was gone. They were saying you're gone, and so going in, it was going to be my first time ever with free agency, and so I'm like, how's this going to work? What are you? All this stuff. You're kind of nervous. You're like, have I played well enough for teams to really be interested in you? And so July 1st, I've gone through July 1st where it was the old style where you had like a 2-hour window to talk to teams and then you signed. And then I went through with Vegas where, the 5-day one. And the 5-day was way worse.
Way worse?
Oh, way worse. That benefited the club way more than it benefited the player. And so
how so?
Well, so when they do the 2-hour window, it's almost like they'll give you the best they got. We want you, and we have a short amount of time because if you don't want to come here, we got to move on. Well, with the 5 days, they're like they kind of poke in and out. It's like, hey, or they just say, hey, this is what we got, take it or leave it. If you're leaving it, we're moving on. But they have days to keep going with guys, whereas they only have hours the other way. And so I found it was stressful because you had to make a decision faster, but
the money was like better.
I've never been in a situation that the money is like, obviously I've made good money over my career, and I'm never going to say anything about that because it doesn't matter what you make in the NHL, you're making a ton of money. But to say the money was better, I don't know if I'd say that. But for other guys, yeah, that would play into it for sure. Like a guy making $2 million to a guy making $4 million. I think guys that in the old way that they did it would make more than the way that they did it before. Because I had teams the second time around when they had that 5-day, teams would just be like, we got $1 million, a 2-year deal, $1 million a year. Just think about it. And then they would kind of leave you alone. And then other teams would poke in and be like, hey, we got this for you. They wouldn't come at you with their best offer. They would kind of give you that and see if anybody would bite on it. So I'm sure they had like a handful of guys. It's like, okay, we'd like to have that guy. If he takes this, great. But if he doesn't, we'll move on to the next guy. Somebody will take it. And so
why Colorado then?
So I had talked to, I had Hitchcock in Columbus my first 2 years. He got fired my second year. He was in St. Louis, Winnipeg. So it's kind of Winnipeg, St. Louis, Colorado were the teams that were talking to me. And I was just, Hitch kind of said, you'll be in the minors, but I think you'll come up and you'll play. Winnipeg, they had a good talk with me and stuff like that. But then Colorado, with talking to my agent, Patrick Waugh was coming in. They had a really young, good team. And I just said, I'm like, you know what? I signed a 2-year two-way. And I said, my first year, if I can go into camp, have a really good camp. I would have been 26 at the time, I think. 25 or 26. I said, you know what? If I can go into camp, have a good camp, and then they'll send me down, play good in the minors, maybe get called up a little bit. And then maybe the next year I can stick in the NHL my second year and then hopefully sign a one-way after that. And so that was my thinking, because with Patrick Waugh coming in, I was like, okay, everyone's starting fresh here. It's not like he has his guys that he likes already and fresh guys. And he had kind of talked with my agent and said, you know what, I don't really like some of the defensemen they have here, so we might try and move them. So there might be opportunity for them. And so that kind of was like, okay. And I was okay going down, hopefully to come back up. But I just remember when I first went there, his training camp was so hard. It was like a junior. He was still running the ramparts. He was just like bag skating us at the end of every practice. Our practices were like an hour and a half long, just hitting each other. And it was just like Columbus, we had hard camps and hard fitness testing, but up until that point, I had never seen anything like this. But I had never been in the NHL, and I thought this was my real opportunity to be there. And so I don't even remember how sore or tired I was. It was just like, just stick, go, like every day. Okay, I'm still here. Keep going. Yeah, I'm still here. Keep going. And so I just remember when he said, "Okay, you're sticking around." It was me and Nate Gennon both were kind of minor league guys, and we both stuck. And he's like, "I'm starting Nate in the first game of the year, but we'll rotate you guys. You're gonna have a little rotation." Well, we won our first 11 games of the year, and he's a very superstitious guy, and so he's like, I can't take Nate out of the lineup right now. Like, we're winning. I'm like, I don't care. I'm still here. You do whatever you want. And so he just kept rolling. And then one day in practice, so I think I've gone a month without playing yet. And he comes up to me after practice, maybe before practice. We're playing Dallas the next day in Dallas. And he goes, "Hey, have you ever played forward?" And I go, "Yeah, I played in the minors a little bit. They used to throw me up front." He goes, "Perfect, you're in tomorrow." I had played forward since Adam hockey. I just wanted to play. I'm like, sure.
Who did you play in a line with?
I can't. Honestly, I don't remember who would have been on my line.
You're telling me you make the team out of training camp.
Yeah.
He decides to go with somebody else and says you're going to switch. Then you win 11 straight games. So you don't play in 11 because he's superstitious because he's Patrick frickin' Waugh.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in game 12, you start as a forward?
In Dallas. And they interviewed me before the game, and they're like, "So, how are you feeling about playing forward? Like, what's your thoughts?" And I go, "I'm just going to get the puck deep and hit somebody." It's like, what do you mean, what am I thinking? I just want to hit and get out there. Like, let's go. And so, yeah, my first game was forward against Dallas. And then I think I started playing during the season. They started putting me on the power play, different situations. O'Reilly kept finding me back door, and I would have my stick on the ice, and it would just hit my stick and go in. And I scored a few goals that way, and then ended up having a good year and a good playoffs. And then I ended up signing a 3-year extension that summer with them.
Your first goal comes against a hometown hero here. I read your first goal is against Mr. Holtby. You remember that?
Yeah, sniped him.
Sniped him?
Yeah, it was in Colorado. Landeskog came around the net, and I need to be within probably like 8 feet at least of the net to score a goal. And so I started sneaking in a little bit down. He came around the net and popped it out, and I went glove side on Holtby. And I just remember it was obviously, as a kid, you grow up thinking about scoring in the NHL, and then when it really happens, you're just elated and just happy to be able to call my mom and dad, call my wife, or I think my wife was there, but talk to everybody and be like, yeah, they were obviously all watching and stuff like that. And yeah, it was pretty fun.
Besides Patty Waugh being superstitious, what was he like as a coach?
I loved him. I absolutely loved him. And my idea of him might be skewed a little bit because he gave me my first NHL opportunity, and he really gave me an opportunity. But I loved him. He loves to win. Anything he does, he wants to win. And obviously, as a player, people saw that. And then as a coach, I think he showed his passion on the bench, but nobody really got to see anything behind the scenes. And so people always ask me that, how was Patty? And he wanted to win. And so he would do anything. He wasn't hard-headed at all. He wanted everybody's opinion. If you didn't like our forecheck, if you thought we were getting beat because our forecheck was wrong, or you thought something was going to help our team win, he wanted to hear it. And so he, in team meetings and team video, he would be doing X's and O's and telling you, okay, I want you here, whatever. But then he would always ask for input. What do you guys think? What do you think? And so, I mean, we had some pretty spectacular players. We had Hall of Fame, like we had Alex Tanguay on our team, Jerome McGinley for a year. And so, and then you had the young guys, Duchesne, Landeskog, McKinnon, and so it was just like hearing all these guys chime in and give their input. He listened to it, and that first year, obviously, I think the stars aligned for us, and we scored a million goals, it seemed, and Varley stood on his head most nights, and so the way we lost to Minnesota was very disappointing, but super exciting first year. And then I think the second and third year, because Patty wanted to win so much and he is so passionate about hockey, it started to like wear on him that we weren't winning really consistently. And so he was just he wanted to fix it. What do I got to do to fix it? What do I got to do to fix it? And so I have nothing but good things to say about him as a coach. And he always mon homme. He always called everyone mon homme, my friend. And so it was kind of a special thing for me because obviously growing up, I loved the Red Wings, but at the time the Avalanche and the Red Wings were the two powerhouses. And so when I got to play for Colorado for those 3 years, it was like Patty was my coach, Joe Sakic's my general manager, and then Adam Foote was around all the time. He was coming out on the ice all the time. And so it was just like almost like a dream team. And so it was like, this is unbelievable. And Denver is so beautiful and unbelievable city to play in. And so it was fun. Yeah, our family had a blast there. Had 2 kids there, and so good memories there as well.
I was saying to Dean when he first mentioned that he texted me about you, and I looked up your stats, and I went, Colorado. I wonder if he was playing the year Colorado. I couldn't remember if it was Game 6 or Game 7, and then obviously it was Game 7 in OT. I remember watching that because that was like, that's the way hockey should be. I mean, I know you wanted to win, but as a fan who doesn't really care if Colorado, well, actually, I was pulling for you guys because you guys had all the young talent. And
Yep.
Patty won his crazy antics, and it was great against Minnesota. That series was like electric. And I watched the highlights of it today again. And I'm like, oh, man, Game 7. I remember that. It's like, oh, Colorado scored again. They're going to win. Nope, there it goes in the net again. Holy crap. But can't they just hold on to a lead? Like, it was just like, bang, in the net, bang, in the net, bang, in the net, back and forth. And then an OT winner.
We scored in the third period with like 12 minutes left. I think it was Johnson scored, and it wasn't like, yeah, okay, we're gonna win this game, but it was like yeah, let's go. And then they scored, and then when they scored in overtime, I think it was Nina Ryder. It was just like, it was almost like Weyburn again. It was like, what just happened here? Like, yeah.
You know, you getting to play in the bubble this year with Vegas. And then if you look at that compared to playing Game 7 in Colorado, you got a Game 7 in Boston. You went to the second round in New York. Am I missing anything here? I think those are probably the three big ones that come to mind.
Yeah.
I assume I pretty much assume you would take going back to where fans are losing it in those buildings and you score a goal and the roof is coming off. What was playing in the bubble like? I mean, you guys go to the conference finals. You play against Dallas and a goaltender that played mind-blowingly good.
Yeah, so I actually, when I played in Boston, me and Hudobin, we were on the plane. We sat with each other. And so I saw him the whole time throughout the bubble because we were all in the same areas. And so you'd see guys all the time. And so I'd be joking with them all the time. Even during the series, like if I saw him off the ice, I'm like, just let me score one, like just giving it to him. And yeah, he obviously, I want to win. I am a super competitor, but for him to play as well as he did, it was awesome to see that because obviously I think he's an awesome guy. But the bubble, for me, it was like the NHL did probably the very best that they could. They tried to give us an atmosphere, which didn't really work. But there was they were trying. They were giving us little crowd noises and stuff like that, but nothing replicates 18,000 people in a building just making your skin tingle, and you score a goal and the place, like you said, the roof pops off, or there's a huge scrum and people are screaming and whatever, or you're coming off the ice as a visiting team and they're screaming at you, just losing it and throwing beer at you and stuff like that. There's nothing like that. And so I think that was probably the only thing that was missing. I think the NHL did a great job setting up activities for us to do, for the ice crews that kept the ice in very good condition, giving us opportunity to have some sort of atmosphere. I think they did a great job. I think the teams did a really good job. I thought the competitiveness, nobody kind of was there just to be there, which was obviously you're in the NHL and you're trying to win the Stanley Cup. And so you would hope that's not the case, but you never know in this crazy, wacky situation that we were in. And so I think for me, it was like when you first get there, you're just so excited, something new, and you hadn't played hockey in a while. And so just being in the bubble was exciting and new and whatever. And then as it went on, it was just kind of like the same day over, and you walk the exact same walk. You go get Timmy's at the exact same time. Like, it was honestly like clockwork. It was just, and so as it went on, I think guys kind of just started to get almost like robots a little bit. And then the hockey side of it, I mean, for the most part, we're professionals, and so we're able to dial in and play well. But outside of the hockey, where at the beginning, like I said, it was something new and kind of exciting, it kind of began like being not as much fun. And you're kind of like, man, I'm kind of starting to miss my family, and guys just started staying in their rooms a little bit more because they didn't want to come down and play Mario Kart again and watch a movie and do the little things that kind of we were doing. And so, or play, they had around the rink, they actually had some virtual golf set up. And so the first like 30 days, it was like, this is awesome. You're almost playing virtual golf every day. And then after that, you're just kind of like, okay, I don't know if I want to go play virtual golf again.
Well, how many days were you in the bubble?
I can't remember exactly, but I want to say mid 50s. I think we were in there 50 some days. And so it went by just like anything else. It goes by fast. When you're in it, it's kind of slow, but once you start to get to the end or get out of it, you're done. And it's like, whoa, I was just in here for 55 days. And like, how fast did that go? But yeah, during the time, like I said, at the end, it started to get a little bit longer where you're just sitting there trying to fill your time with something.
Well, I just think, as for fans, I always we talk about it all the time. I kind of rather enjoyed the morning games and the afternoon games. When you had hockey all day long, first round in the NHL playoffs, nothing compares to it in my mind in any sport. It is awesome. The only thing that I enjoyed about this year was that you could actually watch multiple games, because when the first round's normally going on, it's like you got 8 games going off simultaneously and you're kind of like trying to pay attention and you can't, and you miss really good hockey. Not sitting here saying I watched every game this year, because that'd be dang near impossible. But this year was kind of cool that way. With you, once again, I go back through your career and I think you got to experience Madison Square going nuts. You got to experience the Gardens going nuts. You got to experience Vegas going nuts, Colorado going nuts. Like, I think of where you've been, and I assume you're like most hockey players. You want to play in the same place for 20 years and have the jersey hung and whatever. But if you're gonna bounce around, you might as well bounce around like that. Like, I mean,
you know what? I have been so blessed that my career has gone the way it has. And like I said, my wife has been so supportive. And for somebody, she is a super homebody, like super homebody. And it's for our path that we have taken. I keep moving her every couple of years. It's like she has done so good with all of this stuff and taking care of the kids and getting them the kids are very resilient. I understand that, but just getting back into schools and sports and we just got traded to New York in the summertime at the draft. Well, we got to figure out where we're living, schools, all this stuff. Okay, go. And then get traded to Boston. She was pregnant, and it was probably the worst time ever because her pregnancy was going terribly. She was like puking all the time. She couldn't eat. And I get traded. I knew I was getting traded because the Rangers kind of told us, hey, we're blowing this team up. And so we were all just sitting there waiting. And so I was the first to fall, and then a bunch of guys went after me. But I just remember Angie and the kids actually were coming home, and we're sitting around the table. We're in our house, and I go to the kids. I go, you know what, guys? When you guys come back, I'm probably not going to be here because they were going home for 10 days. I go, yeah, I'm probably not going to be here. And my oldest guy goes, can you just quit hockey already? and like that side of it, I felt terrible. I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry. So, but luckily it was the best place to get traded to. Boston, contender, only like a 3-hour drive from where we were living, just outside New York. And so Ange and the kids just stayed there. They were in school and sports and stuff, and then they would drive up on weekends if we were home. And
What was strapping on the B like?
Strapping on, it was wild because, like you talked about, all those teams. When I first put on Columbus, different story because newer franchise, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But it was my first NHL team.
True.
And so it was super special for me. Then I go to Colorado, obviously such a fairly new team as well, but
they got rich history. You already mentioned Sakic and Juan Foot. Like it's just like you got Jerome freaking Aginla walking around the dressing room. Like, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And so putting that jersey on, I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. Getting traded to the Rangers. I don't know if there's a nicer blue than Rangers blue. It's just
once again, you're talking history. You're talking history again, right?
I think it was my second year there. Maybe it was my first, but it was the 90th anniversary. I'm like, how sick is this? Like, they do such a good job with their alumni, and so to start the year, they always have a golf tournament. And the guys that would come to this tournament, I'm just like, whoa. Like, it was just unbelievable. And then some of the guys that they had around the ring, like Adam Graves and Brian Leach and all these, I'm like, what world am I living in now? Like, this is crazy. And then when you're stepping out for the first time, Madison Square Garden, you step out on the ice and you're just like, holy geez, because it's different playing as an away team. I mean, it's exciting, but I don't think you fully understand and feel the fans' passion, because I don't know if there's anywhere like New York fans, good and bad, they let you know. It's like,
how so?
Well, you'll be walking down the street and people be yelling at you. Like, I always just remember because these guys always would chirp like themselves. It was like Mark Stahl. He would always be like, "Hey Stahl, go back to your rookie season." Like, they're just chirping him. He's like an elite all-star defenseman, and some guys chirping him because he maybe didn't play very good the game before or something. It was just like, just good or bad, they just let you know. But they always supported the team, and so it was just a special time there. But yeah, then you get traded to Boston, which again, unbelievable history. So you're putting on a Bruins jersey, and it's just I guess for me, it's like I put on a Rangers jersey, it's so surreal. I put on a Bruins jersey, it's so surreal. But then when you get on the ice, you're just playing hockey.
Yeah,
and it's such a for me to say that, it sounds stupid, but it's honestly like I'm just a kid just playing hockey.
I don't think it
like,
sounds stupid at all. It makes complete sense to me.
yeah.
Makes complete sense.
I think one of my favorite series that I ever played in was when I was with the Rangers. I mean, that Minnesota Colorado series was awesome. My first taste of NHL playoffs, and obviously the way it went, so back and forth. But then when I was at the Rangers, a first round we played Montreal.
Yeah, original 6.
Oh yeah, that series was awesome. Montreal in the playoffs. I don't know if you can beat that. They get the flames all over the ice, and people are screaming in French, and it's just.
What did you think of that? What do you think of Vegas? The pregame they got going there.
Vegas is just like, just such a whole nother level. So when I coming from Boston, I was talking to Boston in the off season. So July 1 again, I talked to Boston. Vegas came in kind of later, and they kind of said to me, okay, well, we have a 2-year deal for you. What are you thinking? We need to know because we're going to move on. And I was like, well, you guys just went to the finals. You have a good team. I hadn't heard a bad thing about living there. The rink and the owner is unbelievable. I'm like, this is kind of a no-brainer. Like, we're coming back to the West. Like, it's nice to get our family back out to the West. And then I played in the first exhibition game in the Fortress at T-Mobile, and it was honestly like, what is going on here? Like, I just played, I think it was like 11 years of exhibition games, and it was like, this is playoff atmosphere right now. Like, this place is buzzing, and I just, ever since then, like, every night it's the exact same. And some nights it's even louder, and I don't understand how that happens. But the Vegas fans are just so passionate. I go to drop my kids off at school, and it's like 2/3 of the people have Vegas hat, Vegas shirt, car decals, and car license plates, like everything. It's just unbelievable, and it's just so crazy to think how fast Vegas has accepted and jumped on board here. And I think obviously their first season, with everything that happened, the emotion from the October shooting, how the team handled that, to obviously them making the final and everything like that, brought a ton of people to the team. But I think the team has done an awesome job getting out and involved in the community. And so it's just super interlocked here. Which is pretty cool to be at the point in my career, in such a unique situation, very young franchise, but probably one of the top franchises in the league right now that people want to be on this team. And it's just, for me, it's an unbelievable experience, and an honor to be part of this right now.
Yeah, just going back to a comment you made there. Were you around when the October shooting happened then? I can't remember.
So that was their first year.
The first year.
I was in New York, yeah,
Did
at that time.
Did that cross your mind with you and the wife and the kids at all? Anything, were you worried or concerned about that when making the decision?
No, not at all. I think coming from New York was probably, again, the scariest place. But so I would say the scariest, but the best. It was like, I didn't understand how New York, it just scared me. So big.
The size
of it, the amount of people, the subways, the trains, the cars, just everything about it scared me. When we were there, I think there was 2 or 3 terrorist attacks. And it was just amazing to see that city. The one day we were coming in, we're coming in on the train, so I lived out in the suburbs, and we'd have to take, on game days, we pregame skated at MSG. And so you'd have to get on the train at 7:30, and it was like an hour train ride into Grand Central Station, and then you take a couple of subway trains to get to the Garden. We're riding in on the train, and I think we're halfway, a little more over halfway, and our phones start blowing up, and somebody, there was like one of the terrorist jacket bombers in one of the subway, I can't remember which one, and I'm just kind of like, holy shit, like, should we just go home, or like, what's going on? Are we even going to play tonight? Like, what's going on? I think it was actually, so there was like, in a day, there was a guy that went down the West Side Highway in like a rented U-Haul and was hitting people. And then there was another guy an hour later in one of the subway tunnels or something like that. So we're coming in, and this was my first experience with any of this stuff. And I was just like, I didn't know what to do, but there was a group of 4 of us, and we just continued on. We got to Grand Central. From Grand Central, you just had to almost detour. It wasn't like everything was shut down. They just shut down the one track. The 1 or 2 tracks that were connected to with what happened, they shut that down. And so it was like, these people, through all this kind of crazy chaos, somebody attacking you, it's like the way that they are so resilient. I think the mayor at the time, he said, don't let them create fear in you, continue on, because that's what they want. They want to scare you. And so all these people, it was like their day, they were cognizant of it, but they didn't let it affect them to the point that they weren't going to work, they weren't going out, all this stuff. And for me, it was like, what do you mean? Like, holy cow, like, we should all be at home, like, kind of hunker down here, like, let this pass. Like, what happens if something else happens? And it was wild to see. We played that night, and fans came to the game, and obviously we had a moment of silence and stuff for the people that were injured or killed in that attack. But it was just a real eye-opener for me at how that city just keeps pushing on.
Keeps moving.
Yeah, it keeps moving. It is wild. And obviously coming from Edmonton, St. Albert area, it was like, nothing I could ever have even thought of. And that was one of the things that I've told a lot of people too, is like, playing in New York for those 1.5, 2 years, it was like, how cool. Like, how cool is this? I get to go home, and we always joke we're going to end up living back home. And my kids are going to be in classes with kids that they're going to be like, yeah, we went to Winnipeg. It was awesome. And my kids have, 2 of them were born in Denver, lived in New York, lived in Boston, lived in Las Vegas. Like, the places we have been because of hockey, we are so blessed to have all these opportunities. And it has just been the best ride ever. And so it's just, like I said, I'm very, very fortunate to have a wife that is enjoying this ride as much as I am, because guys always ask me, they're like, how do you have so much energy, and how are you, like, happy? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, look at what we're doing. Look at where we are. This is amazing. So.
Well, I really appreciate you hopping on. I kind of lost track of the time. I was laughing. I was having enjoying myself. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes now. I want to do the Crude Master Final 5. It's the final little segment, 5 little questions, long or short as you want to go, Nick. Then I'll let you get back to your family. By the sounds of it, we're just going to have to do round 2 at some point, because I've been thoroughly enjoying this. But we'll save that for a different time. Let's do 5 quick ones. Shout out to Heath and Tracy McDonald, supporters of the podcast since the very beginning. I always ask, especially on a guy's first time on the podcast, if he could pick one guy to sit down and pick their brain like I'm doing you, who would you take? Or past, present, male, female, doesn't matter. Who would you want to sit down with?
I think Alexander Ovechkin. This guy, like, I enjoy hockey, but I don't know if I've seen him he looks like he is having a blast. And obviously being from Russia and some of the stories I've heard from Russia and all that stuff, it'd be interesting to see and hear some of the stuff that he's got to say. I'm sure there's better guys to pick, but I can't.
I put you on the spot, and Ovechkin would be fun. You'd have a good time.
Oh, you'd have a great time. Yeah.
If you got traded tomorrow and could bring one guy with you, who would you bring?
Bring one guy on my team now, or somebody I've played with.
I was gonna say your team now.
Yeah. My team now. Probably Fleury. He's a guy that our families are pretty close, and he's another guy that loves to compete but have a really good time while doing it.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really hoping with the train rumors swirling that the Oilers might have gotten Marc-Andre, because I've always appreciated his demeanor and his style of play. He looks like a fun guy, and he is talented.
Yeah, he's super fun and very fun to score on, because it doesn't happen very often. So usually you celebrate pretty good.
If you were hired tomorrow, Hollywood comes a knocking. They want to remake an old sports movie, and they're gonna star you as the number one spot. So you could pick, Kevin Costner, Bull Durham, Paul Newman, Slapshot, Rob Lowe, Youngblood, Emilio Estevez, Mighty Ducks, Brad Pitt, Moneyball, Sylvester for Rocky, Sean Astin for Rudy, Charlie Sheen, Major League. I'm just spitting off a whole bunch right now. If you could remake one of those parts, which one would you take? Or any sports movie for that matter.
I think I would take Stanka in Cool Runnings.
In Cool Runnings? You dead man.
Yeah. Stanka, you dead man.
Cool Runnings. There's a movie I haven't heard of in a long ass time.
Yeah, we've been trying to, over quarantine, we started trying to watch some of the classic movies, or classic that I think of, with the kids, and they love Cool Runnings. And so yeah, it's on every other week, I think, in our household right now.
That might be one of the best things about being a parent that you don't realize, is that you get to introduce your kids to so many cool things, and movies obviously being one of it. I just had the kids watch Home Alone for the first time, and like
Our guys are obsessed.
The sheer terror in my daughter, like she was so scared of the wet bandits, and I was like, oh, like it's gonna be okay, right? Like it's gonna be okay. But they were like on every word. Anyways, Cool Runnings, cool. All right, hardest player to shut down. Who's the most talented guy coming at you that is just like, frig, he's good?
Yeah. So obviously everybody knows McDavid. I think it's A-B for me. McDavid and McKinnon are probably right now the two most elite skaters, puck handlers in our league. They can just beat you one-on-one, but they can also beat you passing it. And so I always laugh. I'm like, if you're playing those guys, you either have to have the tightest gap and try and get them right away, or just start skating forward to your goal. Because if you're any in between and they're picking up speed, they're just blowing past you. So those are the two guys. But in my career, the one guy that I hate playing against is Zach Parise. This guy, he's fast enough and skilled enough that he can kind of work around you, but this guy's effort level is, I've never seen anything like it. He'll have 10 shots in a game because he is getting rebounds everywhere. It's like you think you have him tied up and he is getting the rebound. You think you have him in the corner tied up and he's somehow rolling out of the pin you have him in. And so I used to hate when I was with Colorado and we would play them all the time. It was like, you're paired up against him and you're just like, oh man, this guy just doesn't stop. Most guys, it's like, if you get them to a point, they break and they stop. This guy has no breaking point. He just keeps going and going and going.
Question 4B, because I see that I forgot to ask about it. I hate the Calgary Flames, but if there was one player that dang, I wish he had played for the Edmonton Oilers, it would have been Jerome McGinley. What was having Jerome McGinley like in the locker room?
Obviously, at the point in his career that he was at, he's starting to try and find teams that he can try and win with. And so when he came to us in Colorado, you saw obviously the talent and everything that was there. And so I'm from St. Albert. He grew up in St. Albert. And so growing up, he's kind of a huge idol already. And then it was just like the first couple times I saw him and met him and started talking to him, it was like, is this for real? Like, he's really on my team right now. Whoa. And then the more you play with him, I mean, I think the common denominator with any elite player is just their determination and their passion to win. And Jerome, he shows that in everything he does. He fights, he scores, he gives you everything he has. And obviously just his leadership in our room was amazing. He wasn't talking all the time because we didn't need him to be talking all the time. But when he did talk, obviously he was a guy that guys were like, okay, I'm going to listen to this because he's
Because it's Jerome
good.
bloody McGinley. Yeah.
And he might beat me up if I don't. So
Your final one then is, you seem like a guy who likes to have fun. What is the best prank that you've seen pulled or pulled on someone?
I don't know. Pranks are hard. When I was with Colorado, I'm not going to name names. I may or may not have been involved with this prank, but we were in Montreal. Gabe Landeskog was suspended for a game, so he was missing. He had taken the trainers out for supper, and then they were grabbing drinks after. So we knew we were playing the next day, so we knew he was going to be out later, and he wasn't playing, and so we had to go. We wanted to blow up his room, and so I had to go down to the front desk and pretend I was him and say I lost my key. And so I go down to the front desk and I go, hey, I'm Gabe Landeskog. I lost my key. And they're like, oh, okay. And they asked what room and I knew what room he was at. I said, this room, say 1012. 1012. And they're like, do you have ID? We have to check ID. I go, my wallet's in my room. I forgot it. And the lady goes, okay. And she goes, just one sec. I'll just check online picture. So she types in on her internet, Gabe Landeskog. And then she goes, okay. And she gives me her key. And I just start dying. I'm like, oh my gosh, this really worked. And so we ended up blowing his room up, put his mattress in a shower, stole all his bedding and pillows. So he had nothing. So he got back, I think, like 2 or 3 in the morning. Obviously, probably drank a couple.
Sociables.
Just wants to go to bed. Has nothing. He had nothing to sleep with. Nothing. And so the best part of that prank for me was that they thought I looked like him, and so I gave it to him. I'm like, are you kidding me? Look at this. They thought this was you. That is the biggest insult. And so I just never let him live it down. Compliment for me, insult for him. So.
Well, Nick,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you hopping on. This has been a lot of fun. I really hope in the new year you guys are back playing some hockey. It'd be good to have it on the TV, and all the best, in the coming, in the coming future. Hopefully, like I say, we get to see some Vegas hockey again. Hopefully the Oilers beat up on you guys a little bit. That's what I'd like to see. No offense. Vegas is my number 2. The fans there look like they'd be a lot of fun, but born and bred Oiler fan, it's hard to switch mid. But,
yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I don't think I've the Vegas that atmosphere again. I know I talked about it earlier, but
You're
think-
saying if I come down and experience a game, it may change me for life. Is that what you're saying?
There are the amount of people that come and they leave that going, holy cow! Like it's just not. They've changed hockey. Vegas has changed the way that it's not just about hockey anymore. It's the entertainment of the whole package. It's the outside entertainment. It's inside. It's during whistles, all that stuff. They've changed it because the amount of teams now that are trying to put drum lines and different things on the board that Vegas started is just incredible. How many people are trying to replicate that atmosphere and that energy in the rink. And I think too, it was hilarious. I heard that the owner told the person in charge of the entertainment, he goes, I don't, because in warm up and anytime music's playing, it is so loud. And he said, I don't want you, if you're standing beside somebody, I don't want you to be able to hear them talk. And so it's like a nightclub. It's like, what? So it's just, it's a good time.
Well, regardless, thank you for hopping on here and sharing some stories about your career and your journey to where you are. I think we got to do it again here at some point, Nick, but I'll give you a reprieve, let you go hang out with your family. And just once again, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.